right, good afternoon, everybody. Dr. Glow here from her office. I usually don't record at 2 in the afternoon, so it's really interesting. A little bit different for me today. But I had to make a special change just for Sonhara, right?
Yes, Sonhara.
Sonhara, very good. So happy to have you here today. Thank you for joining me. How are you?
I'm doing good. Excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you. You just don't understand. You don't understand. Like, you're like my first interview specifically on this topic, and it's so important. So tell everybody who you are.
So my name is Sonhara. I'm a screenwriter, playwright. I have a web series about infertility called Black Girls Guide to Fertility that's won several awards. And I myself dealt with infertility for nearly 7 years before having my daughter in 2019. So I know a little bit about the topic.
So do I. I'm just so excited to have this conversation with you. So excited. So let's start from the beginning. What would you want to share about your journey at all?
You can just ask me and then however you want to do it. Or I can.
Okay, so you said 7 years. 7 years is a long time.
Yeah, a very long time.
All right. So did you go through IVF?
So we started with IUI, and that's intrauterine insemination. And so that's less costly. And we did about, God, I don't even know, like 7 or 8 of those.
Wow.
And they all failed. So in between that time, like we had like back-to-back failures of like, okay, well, why don't you take a break and then come back in a couple of months? So, you can quickly, those years can start to add up on you, stack up on you. And then I did IVF after that. I took a break in between. So I'm just like, I'm done with this. And then we moved on to IVF. And then we did 3 IVFs in total. The first 2 failed. And then the last one, I got pregnant with my daughter.
Oh, well, congratulations.
Yeah.
But that seems like a lot of years and a lot of work and probably a lot of money.
A lot of money, a lot of stress. And, I meet so many people like, well, how do you pay for the infertility treatments? Some of it we paid out of pocket. And then towards the end, when we got to IVF, we took out loans. And so it's kind of like figuring out, what do you do, how to do it, how you're going to balance all stuff financially, and, just getting what you want out of this life. And just making that tough decision, debt or, possibly no child. And you have to wait it to, which sucks because it should be covered. It shouldn't be all these expenses to pay for fertility treatments.
No, I agree. So what state do you live in?
I live in Atlanta, so I'm in Georgia.
So you're in Atlanta. Oh, yeah, they're not approving anything down there.
Yeah, exactly. And when I'm from New York originally. I'm from Rochelle. And so when I came back to New York in 2014. And so I was trying to switch things up there. So I was in high school at the time, but it just was too much. It was too much trying to go to grad school, trying to focus on that. But yeah, I know some things are covered in New York versus nothing is covered here.
Yeah, we actually got lucky in 2019 when it was like 2019. My daughter was already here when the governor put in to cover everything basically that they're required to cover IVF and other fertility treatments, and that's very new. Very new, because we've been experiencing struggles as a community for a very long time, and it just happened now that people are starting to recognize women's health and the need for it, because so many people need help and it's so expensive.
Yeah. And then, when you find yourself, especially if you're a Black woman, how are we going to pay for this? How are we going to afford this? What options do we have to get loans? What options do we have to get financing? And so that becomes an even bigger issue. So I feel like all the way around, like we're kind of like set aside, deal with this and figure it out. There aren't a lot of resources for us.
No, not at all. Not at all. Which I'm very happy that you decided to become a resource for other people. So tell me about some of your services and what you offer and what you do and your purpose.
Sure. So my purpose is to bring awareness to infertility through the arts. And so I do that through theater. I have a play about infertility. There's a theater here called True Colors Theater. And so we did a short piece about infertility, and because of COVID, we couldn't have people on the seats, so it was digital. And of course, I have my web series about infertility that centers on the Black woman. And for me, because there was so much silence and so much shame around the topic, and I, even going through it, I didn't tell my family, I didn't tell my friends, because it was something that was shameful. And it was something that also you don't hear when you're sitting at the dinner table. No one brings up, oh yeah, well, I heard so-and-so trying to have a baby and they couldn't. Like, that's not a conversation, at least that was amongst my community, where people were talking about someone trying to have a kid and couldn't have one. There are other topics, but that's not a topic of conversation. And so how do I normalize this topic? How do I bring light to it? And, you know, we watch TV all the time. We watch movies all the time, and we find different things in it that we connect with. And so for me, showing that through the arts is one way for me to bring awareness. I also have a podcast called Black Girls Guide to Fertility, where I interview people and I find out their journey and their sacrifice and what they did to become a parent, or what services they offer. And I just put that out there, you know, to the community for people to download and listen to give them hope, to give them light, and give them a sense that they have a community, because that's something I felt was lacking for me going through my 7-year journey.
Yeah, no, I can wholeheartedly agree with you. Is the same thing. It's pretty much why I wrote my book. It's basically the same exact thing. And I also wrote my book from the perspective of the partner, because it was my wife who actually went through IVF, who went through all the shots and everything else, but I was right there.
Yeah.
and that is a whole different world from the other side and what that looks like.
Exactly. But you're still experiencing it. But even though you're not doing the carrying, you're still going through the process, you know, of the ups and the downs, and, you know,
and the stress and the not stress, the worries and the worries. Yeah. And waking up. Is this going to be the time? Is this going to be?
Exactly. Not wanting to take the call when the doctor calls, like, you know, who's going to answer the phone, you know?
Yeah.
So,
and that was my job.
Oh, wow. See, that was my husband's job too. I was just like, yeah, I'm not answering the phone anymore.
Yeah. And it's so much pressure. And then when you get that no, and then you got to call, like, I know how he felt when he had to call you.
Yeah, exactly.
You sit there, you're somewhere in the supermarket, you're like, damn, I got to make this call.
Exactly.
But you're hurt for yourself, but then you know how much more hurt you're going to be.
Yeah. And I always feel like, especially when I would get the calls, like even when he would tell me, I always felt like I knew it was a no. Just, I could tell, even the phone's ringing and I don't know. I'm just like, I feel like this is going to be a no, you know.
This didn't work.
Yeah, exactly.
You do know. It is so funny if you do. Like, sometimes you feel like, okay, maybe, then you're kind of like, nah.
Yeah. And even so, when I got pregnant with my daughter, like at that point, I would say I was like beyond my breaking point. I was just like, whatever, let's just do this third round and let's just, you know, move on from this. And so I had taken another job, which was on the West Coast. And so they were waiting for me. I told them, hey, I'm doing this fertility treatment. You know, I can't leave until, you know, this happens. And they're like, okay, well, we'll wait for you. So I did all my stuff. I get on the plane, and you know, you're not supposed to lift anything. Like, I'm throwing my suitcases around, all that stuff. And they call me like, hey, 2 weeks have gone by. You need to go to a clinic out there, because I was in LA, and get tested out there. And I was just like, okay, like, I'll get to it. So I did.
Yeah.
And they called me later in the afternoon. It's like, hey, your test came back positive. And I was like, they got my test mixed up with someone else's. And I was like, okay, I got to go. And the nurse called back and was like, Sonhara, are you listening to what I'm saying? Your test came back positive. I need you to go back to that same clinic on Monday, because that was a Friday, and retest me to make sure, you know, things are progressing. So I was like, okay, whatever. Still in my mind, I'm like, they got me mixed up with someone else. So I go back that Monday, seriously, because I had no for all these years. I go back that Monday, they test again, and then they called my doctor in Atlanta. My doctor in Atlanta called me, and the nurse was like, hey, so your test is positive. Like, you are pregnant. And I was just like, nah, I don't believe you. She's like, listen to what I'm saying. I need you to get excited on the other end of this phone. You know how long we've been on this journey? And like, the nurse had been with me this whole time. So like, she's saying like, because we've been in this together.
Exactly. Because they're part of the process. Yeah.
Exactly. She's like, we've been on this journey for so long. Like, we are here. She's like, so I need you to make an appointment to come back home, because we need to do our own testing. And so I did, you know, and obviously my daughter's here, but it was just like, even getting to that process, like, I did not believe it, because I heard no for all those years. I'm like, they got my test mixed up with someone else's. Like, I just know it. Like,
that's so interesting. So you said you went through 3 rounds of IVF.
Yes.
So was that because you wasn't retrieving a lot of eggs, or were you not getting qualified embryos?
No, so that's the interesting thing. So we did our egg retrieval, and I had the second highest number of eggs retrieved in the clinic. So everything with my story was like very wonky. Like it was kind of like, well, hey, so they diagnosed me with PCOS, which is polycystic ovary syndrome. My husband's older than me, so they're like, oh, well, and he had a vasectomy at one point in time. So he had a reverse vasectomy when we got married. And like, well, his sperm moved kind of slow, but even with that, you should still be conceiving naturally, but it just wasn't happening. So even when we did the IUIs, they were surprised that didn't work. Move on from there, we did the first IVF. They were surprised that didn't work. Second IVF, surprised that didn't work. So like we had the embryos, we had all those things, like it just was not taking for whatever reason. And like they don't know the reason. And before we did the third one, they wanted me to do a procedure and I forget what it's called. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. Like you're not scraping anything else. I'm not going to.
Oh, they wanted to clean your endometrial line, yeah.
Yes, that was it. Yeah. And I was just like, no, I'm not doing anything else. I'm gonna do this third one and, then you guys won't see me for a while. But, like I said, I conceived on that one. So.
Oh, that's wonderful. So you said your baby was born in June.
So she was born August 1st, 2019. So yeah, she's 2.5.
Congratulations. Our rainbow baby came June 7th, 2019.
Oh wow! So same time almost.
Exactly. Like so seriously, so it's like our kids are cousins.
Exactly. Like they're gonna have to meet now when I come to New York.
Definitely. So it was really interesting. For our story, it was a little bit different because we ended up losing a child in between. So all we did was IVF. We went to their first appointment and they were just like, no, you have to do IVF. And we did. We ended up losing a baby. I'm not going to talk too much about it because all of it's in my book.
Yeah.
But and I think that was a major part of me really want to write the story, because then I found out how many women actually lose children through this process and what that looks like. And then even, for your situation where things aren't taking, where your body, you could have been pregnant for like 30 seconds into the process and something happened and now you're just not pregnant, and people don't understand that either. It could take a little bit and then not take all the way.
Exactly. And then wondering, hey, was I ever pregnant? Like those kind of things, because you just, you don't know. But yeah, we go through so much, put our bodies through so much, much stress. Just trying to have a family, right?
Yeah. And it's just that desire, that's a natural thing. We're put out here to reproduce, right? That's what our brains and our bodies are made
wired that way. Exactly. Exactly.
And when you can't, it's like, whoa.
Yeah, like you're just dealing with that, the mental anguish of it all. So I did have a therapist. So I will put that out there. Like I did have a therapist who, I would talk with, regularly, and we would go through things. And she also was very encouraging, through the process as well. But I would encourage people, like, and because I kept it closed in so much, I was afraid to tell people. At least having my therapy sessions, I was able to kind of like say, everything, say what I was dealing with and say all the things emotionally that I was feeling, so I definitely recommend that to anyone. Get a good therapist. A good one.
No, I agree. So one question about you in regards to family. So I know, you mentioned that you didn't say a lot of things to a lot of people. Why do you think you kept it so closed in?
I just think culturally, it's just not something that Black people talk about. It's kind of like a mental health. People don't talk about that either. And we don't hear these type of conversations. So when I look around me and everyone that I know has children, it's kind of like, well, then there's just something wrong with me. Like I don't fit into the mold of all these other things. So, and no one's talking about it in my family. So clearly it's just a me thing. And so you just kind of keep it in and keep it to yourself, which isn't healthy. And so going backtracking into something that's in my web series, my grandmother, she's deceased now, but I remember every Sunday in church when I was a kid, she would get up and give her testimony about how the doctor would tell her that she would never be able to have children. And she always say, but I have 5 daughters. And she would say this religiously, like every Sunday, every time it was testimony time, she would always say this testimony. Like, and we kids would laugh. We were like, why she's always telling the story? Like, we know the story, but like, that's the only time she ever talked about it was Sunday at church. And then, fast forward years later, she was gone. And that's the only thing I kind of clung to. The only thing that I had to keep with me was, hey, I do know someone who talked about infertility. She didn't talk about it in the sense that, oh, you know, I was having so much trouble. She talked about it in her testimony time in church. But I do know someone who was going through it. I do know someone who was like me, but they got on the other side of it and was able to have a family. But outside of that, there was no one else, you know, in my family who was dealing with it that I know of, you know. After the fact, after I came out with my story, some people in my family did reach out to me and tell me that they dealt with it, which is why they didn't have children, or why they adopted, things like that. But initially dealing with it for the first, I would say 5 years of it, literally, there was no one in my family who I connected with who was going through what I was going through or that I knew of. And so I just kept it to myself because I felt like it's just me. And so it's something that's shameful now because it's just me.
Yes, you know? You was on that personal island.
Exactly. Just dealing with it alone and feeling like, oh, you know, I can't tell anyone because now this is embarrassing, you know, like, and there's nothing to be embarrassed about because, you know, when you go through these situations, you know, I feel like they make you stronger. And then when you have an outlet, when you have a community, then you have people that also are there with you. Because when I tell people like, oh, like, well, why didn't you say something before? Like no one looked at me sideways or no one looked at me, you know, it wasn't the reaction that I thought I was going to get, you know. But yeah, I think it was just like a shame thing, which is why I didn't tell people.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. I just, for me, like some people knew, but I'm a bit of a perfectionist in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So I couldn't handle the idea of something going wrong and having to listen to people realize that it went wrong.
Yeah.
And, you know, and then after the process of we kept on getting no's, I found that we had to constantly deal with everybody else's emotions about our concerns. And that's so heavy. And I don't think people understand that when they come to you and something's going wrong. I feel so sorry for you. Okay, actually, it's made me feel worse.
Yeah,
You know, that's not the energy I need.
Yeah, exactly.
With this type of situation, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, then after we lost our son, it's a big thing. And I talk about this conversation a lot in the book. I've mentioned it over and over again how we kept things from people because I did not want to have to take on everybody else's emotions.
Yeah.
About everything that was going on.
You know? And did you feel like they were going to ask you questions too, and like kind of, you know?
Yeah. You know, even when I came back to work after our loss, because you know I was a director of my school then as well, and I text my partner before I went back, and I was just like, yeah, nobody's to mention it to me. I need a safe space. So everybody came, and I would see them. They'll kind of give me these eyes, like it kind of just walked past me. But I appreciated the silence about it there because it was so heavy at home. I needed a place to be that was, you know, what you consider normal or okay. To be able to exist just in my regular world, you know, then I would go in my office, close my door, and cry my face off. But I needed to be able to be safe there, and they allowed me to have that space, which was important. For me at that point.
And for me, like, because I never dealt with the loss part of it, but I talked to so many women who have, and even someone a couple of months ago, and she was dealing with the loss, and she was like, I don't even know how you dealt with this for 7 years. I said, well, I didn't go through the loss part, but even dealing with infertility is a loss to begin with, but I didn't deal with the loss part in the way that you're dealing with it. I dealt with the loss of it's not working for me. You know what I mean? So it's like, but it's all kind of, you know, the same heavy weight that, you know, we have to carry.
No, definitely. That's so interesting. So in regards to the theater, right? The play.
Yes.
So you said you've done it and you've done it on a virtual scale.
Yeah.
When are you doing it live?
I'm not sure. You know, I hear things are open up there. I guess at least Broadway is open.
We're up and moving. They took down mask mandates. We're live up here now.
Yeah, so here things are still closed in that sense. Like the theater is not open. I'm hearing it may open back up this summer. And so the piece I did for them, for the theater that I work with, was a short piece. And so I'm going to make it a full piece. But, you know, I want to be in front of a live audience. Like I want it to be, you know, like the way theater is supposed to be presented, because it's hard to communicate a theater piece through, you know, video, you know, like it works if you want to see it, but there's nothing like that live one-on-one interaction. So as soon as things open up here is when I'll be able to get it done.
And I'll be right there watching.
Yes.
Because I'm gonna listen. I want to know. I want to know. So you're gonna have, because my calendar fills up. So I'm already booking in 2023 right now.
Oh,
so
wow.
So keep me posted on your possible dates.
Absolutely.
I will clear time and space in my calendar to make sure that I'm there, because I believe in supporting Black-owned businesses, hands down. But this is something even bigger than that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I would definitely let you know.
And I'm gonna promote it and make other people come.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a pretty big following in Atlanta as well. So it's like one of my second
cool.
cities. I spend a lot of time out there.
Oh, cool. You gotta let me know when you come down for sure.
I'll be there in June, actually.
Yeah, we gotta get the kids together.
I know, they're cousins.
I know.
You tell them all about it.
Same struggle, right?
Exactly. They should know. Listen, I tell people all the time. I'm like, listen, it's like, yeah, I love my daughter to death. $35,000 later, she's here.
I know. And we finally, I'm gonna say she was like, oh my God, like 1.5. And we finally paid that loan off. And like I posted on Instagram, like paid the loan off. Like,
yeah.
Like, people were just sharing
it. Crazy. It was
just
so
like,
weird.
Wait, just like, oh, like
it was a lot of hard work. It was so much hard work. People just don't. It's so expensive.
But then you meet people who can't get the loans, and to me, that's the sad part. Who can't get approved for a $20,000 loan, those kind of things, and you know, it's kind of like, well, because you don't have, you know, the finances in place, or you don't have, I guess maybe the credit or whatever, you know, like you can't get the loan. And to me, that sucks, because now you can't have a family because you can't get approved for a loan, you know? So there's always like those type of disparities. But I just tell people, just keep trying whatever you got to do. If you got to borrow money from your family and paying back later, like if this is something that you want, like pursue it with, you know, all of your passion, all of your heart, you know, because men can produce kids at any point in time. Like we have a limited amount of time that we can carry and our bodies can carry, you know, realistically. So we don't have all the time in the world, you know, so we have to put all our effort into things that we want.
You once said it. And I agree with you wholeheartedly, because that's true. That is so true. Because, you know, it's interesting to look at the disparities of people who can't even begin to understand the expense of it and how to begin to understand how to afford it under any circumstances. Can't even begin. So it's like, okay, I'm just not going to have kids. Yeah,
because they can't get a loan, or, you know, those type of things. They can't afford it. And there are so many people out there like that who just can't afford it. You know, that's always sad to me. I know there are programs out there and you can get grants and things like that. Of course, you have to apply to them and wait and see if you are, you know, selected.
One of the 2 people selected?
Yeah, exactly. So and so people always ask me, why didn't you apply to those? For me, it was like pouring all that time into that. I just kind of wanted to keep moving, you know, just keep moving. You know,
you had access to resources though.
Yeah, my credit union and say, hey, this is what I need. Get the loan, keep moving, you know.
No, I completely understand. We pulled money from retirement and everything else. Trust me, it was interesting.
Yeah.
It was interesting.
Like whatever you got to do, right?
Yeah. Because the clinic we used was really magical. I like the clinic I used because we was allowed to finance our IVF. Weirdest thing ever.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, and it wasn't even expensive. It was called CNY. So like our whole IVF process, just that piece was only about $5,000. So it wasn't a lot of money.
Oh wow, that's great.
So, but it was funny, before the baby was born, I was like, I got to make this last payment. I refused to have a baby in my hand. I was still financing.
Yeah.
It was so weird. I was like, no, I got to pay this off. Like, no, I can't do this.
But doesn't that sound weird, right? Financing a baby, right? Doesn't it even sound weird?
But that's the reality of it. We finance this kid.
Exactly.
You know, there's like the bigger cost, and people also get mixed up with, like, sometimes the procedures aren't that much. It's the medications.
Yes. Right? So I forget how much we pay the medications. I know one pharmacist gave me a coupon, so that saved me a couple $100. But I think it was like, I don't know, a couple $1,000 for the medication.
Oh yeah, meds are expensive.
Yeah,
meds are expensive.
Yeah.
And then every time you go in for another procedure, there's more meds, or more meds, or more meds.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
I'm like, all right, let me get some more medications. Yeah, it was crazy because some of the medications she was on, like one of the vials we had to get quote for Neupogen that we use, it was like $300 a vial. And
I remember I writing down cost for everything, which I don't remember everything right now, but I know they were super duper.
That's where I get my big number from, because I added up everything. I even added the money I had to use on gas from going back and forth to the clinic. We commuted. Our clinic, because it was more affordable, was 2 hours from home.
Oh, wow.
So we would get up at like 5 in the morning and go to the clinic.
Yeah. Wow.
So I can be back for work at 9 o'clock, because when you're doing this, missing work wasn't.
So you guys were exhausted. Like,
yeah, it was so interesting. But
I mean, the Atlanta traffic is horrible, so it would take me an hour to get any place anyway, going to the doctor. But
yeah. So tell me a little bit more about your podcast. Like, where is it? So how can people get access to your podcast? How about that?
So they can see it on my website. My website is blackgirlsguidetofertility.com. It's also on iTunes, and it's on Podbean. And so I used to do it regularly, like every week. Makes it a little bit harder, when you have a small kid in the house, and all those things. So I am a perfectionist. I don't want to hear noise in the background. But I try to put it out now at least 3 times a month. So I just put one out today. But yeah, I just interview people who are in the infertility world, and people who are advocates, people who've experienced infertility. And I post them and get them out there. It has a lot of views. I don't know all the people who listen to them, who download them, but I appreciate them listening. And for me, it's just about getting information out there to help people who are feeling alone and feeling like they don't have resources. Because there's so many people out there. Even the person I interviewed last week, she's a yoga instructor. And so she was talking about just movement and moving your body and doing things to release from the stress of infertility, all those things that we just hold on so tightly in our bodies, releasing that. And so, and she's a Black female yoga instructor. And so just having people like that on who are helpful to people's bodies, helpful for their mindset, and who are able to talk about all things infertility.
I think this is great. I am so excited that I found you through my searching on Instagram. Because I was looking at people just like you. Because with the release of the book, which is called Heroes Memoirs of Infertility. I was like, no, I want to do interviews focused on this concept, right? One, it goes with the book. Of course, marketing. I'm always about business. Absolutely. But it's the fact that I want people to hear other people's perspectives and their experiences and additional resource. And you're an amazing resource for people who are having that rough night and they just want to listen to a story. They can tap into your podcast and just have something to feel like, okay, it's not just me.
Exactly, that they're not alone. And that's
nobody wants to be alone anywhere on an island.
Exactly. Feeling like you're the only person. And of course, my podcast is centered on Black women, but it's for everyone. And I centered it about Black girls because, again, we keep it to ourselves. And even Michelle Obama had written a book a couple of years ago, and people didn't know she did infertility. She didn't talk about it, and that's kind of like the basis of it. Like, we don't talk about it. We kind of go through these things. And then like years later, oh yeah, well, yeah, I did go through that. But it's so helpful to tell people about your journey because it can help them as well.
I agree wholeheartedly. Because when I was reading Michelle Obama's book, that's when I realized, I was like, what?
Yeah.
You too?
Exactly.
Yeah. But it's all the time. Every time I go somewhere now, I'm always finding people and they're like, oh, boy, so you got your book on Facebook. You know what? I'm going through IVF right now. What do you think about this? Well, I'm doing that. I mean, all the time I go around people now.
Exactly.
It's just like, hey, I'm like, yeah, keep working on it. It's okay. Keep trying. Well, what did you do? When we have these conversations, because you just want people to talk to and hear you out.
Exactly.
Understand.
Exactly. Well, I have to get your book for sure.
You do. Purchase through my website, www.blackgirleverythingllc.com.
Seriously, I will get it and take a picture of it. Okay.
I appreciate that. Put it everywhere. Like, hey.
Exactly.
No, just as I'm going to promote you as I'm doing right now with my network. People are going to tune in now.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, thanks.
Listen, that's how it works. We got to take care of each other out here.
Exactly. It's all about
definitely. So again, tell people where they can find you.
You can find me on Instagram at Sonhara Eastman, also on Instagram at Black Girls Guided Fertility. And I have my website as well, blackgirlsguidetofertility.com. You'll see my web series on there. You'll see a link. You should see a link to my play on there. And the link to the podcast is on there. So, and of course,
definitely. So I'm going to check out your website, and everybody's going to be able to find you on the Black Girl Everything YouTube channel.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, because after we record this, I put everything on my YouTube channel. So you'll be there with, I think, your video number 107.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, because normally on my regular job, I record Black women-owned businesses.
7's my lucky number.
Ooh. You don't tell me that. I was born in July, so don't give me all that.
Me too.
July what?
7/7.
Really? I'm July 3rd.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Look at see how we find it. Look at that.
Together, right?
Look at us. How we do what we do because we're such caretakers. Look at that.
Exactly.
So great. So thank you so much for this midday.
Yes.
Pleasure.
Thank you for altering your schedule to come.
No, it was dope. It was really cool. I appreciate your time. No, I totally appreciate your time. So go ahead, keep being great out there. Let me know when this play comes out in 2023 because I'm ready for it in 2023.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
2023. Yeah, I'm going to be there.
You said it.
So you know. All right. We'll talk soon. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.